Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show. This is today's A-plus study group. We'll be starting in about 10 minutes. So if you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward if you care to. We'll be sitting here for the next 10 minutes, making sure that we're all here, I guess. That at least I'm all here. It'd be very difficult to do this if you weren't here, though. That would be the worst study group ever. But you are going to be here. I can look at the numbers as people are logging in. I'll make sure that this, yep, we're up and running there. We've got this. You can see those things. This looks pretty good. Hello, chat room. Welcome. I can see people are already in there. Some of you get here very early. You get here much earlier than I do. Not much earlier. I mean, I'm here for all morning. But I really only start getting ready for the live stream. Well, I get a lot done the day before, but there's some things here in the studio. I have to move things around. These screens are in different places. This control panel's not in front of me normally. The laptop isn't even in here usually. I have to put a lot of things together. So that usually is I do a few of those things first thing in the morning. And then about an hour before is when I really start turning on the video switcher, making sure the lights are working, checking cameras, that kind of thing. So I've been at this probably since for the last 45 minutes anyway. Some of you have been around in the chat room poking around for well before that. So I see you there. So you're already ready to go, and I am not, because I have to get all of this ready. This thing right here, to get that ready. I have to put a decent shirt on with a collar. That's right. That's real. That's not a green screen shirt. It's just a green shirt. So that's what that is. So we will be starting here in about 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Danny, welcome to the live show. Thanks for supporting the site and getting those PDF course notes. It does go a long way to keeping the lights on. Otherwise, it'd be very dark. Lights are on now. You can see the rest of the studio. When the lights are on, it looks really, really, really dark. What happens when the lights are off? What's it look like? Have we done that before? I think we have. Only because I've never been ready. So let's turn the lights off. So let's go to off immediate for all of those outlets. And whammo, that's much better. That's pretty good. I kind of like that. I prefer the dark. It's so dark because all the blinds are closed. Normally the blinds are open. There's sunlight coming in. It's actually quite nice. But when you look at it like this, it looks like it's this tiny little place to do that. And now, of course, my daughter's decided to text me. What time is that? What time? Okay, we have to figure out all of these different things. I don't want emojis. Is it possible just to turn off emojis? Sacre bleu. Why would you do that? That sounds crazy. Okay. All right, we have a few minutes before we get started. Let's do a camera check, shall we? Shall we? There's camera one. Hi, camera one. I see you there. And camera two is what you've been looking at. It's the bird cam. Camera three. I need to put some things on the screen. Camera three. That's me turning the lights on and off. I think we're good there now. There's Socrative. And camera four, which will be this. There we go. And the graphic. The lead graphic. There it is. You don't even see me on that one. All right. That all works. All works. So, folks, welcome. Chat room, welcome. I see you there. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I've not done the emojis, the weird emoji, the bear talking like me or whatever that nonsense is. I don't have a need for it. I have zero need for a talking whatever it is, a talking raccoon. That's me. No. No, you're stuck looking at me. You're stuck with this. Sorry. There's nothing alternative or reality. Details on answering questions and everything else will be given at the beginning. Although if you go to professormesser.com/live, you'll see instructions there on how to access the question. We'll get all of those things going. It's very easy. Just pop open a new browser and off you go. Let's get rid of this. While we're waiting, I wonder if I can do this. It's just a bad idea. Never mind. I was going to do a thing. Now I've decided not to do a thing. That happened very quickly in my head. All of you missed that. We've got 4 minutes and 40 seconds before we get started. We know the cameras work. I've already got my notification. We're here. Did the tweeter work? Let's go to the tweeter. And the Twitter, when do these things come out? 5 minutes before, so it would have come out a minute ago. And is it? I don't see myself. That doesn't surprise me. Oh, because I did not refresh. One has to refresh. Well, I still don't see me. So that's me in a nutshell. Don't see it, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it, don't see it. Well, we'll have to worry about that later. Sometimes Twitter doesn't like the automated postings. They've made it not so easy to do all of those things. So it's challenging. Challenging sometimes to let everybody know what's going on. I can't be expected to actually live tweet. That would be wrought with problems. I would get everything wrong. Oops, sorry for the bad link. Here's the correct link. Oops, messed that one up. Here's an update. That would be me every time. There's just too many moving parts going on. There's setting up the recordings. There's making sure we have enough disk space to record these things. There's turning the stream on. There's making sure the stream is working properly. There's making sure things are posted on the website, that the chat room is enabled and up and running, that. And as you know, if you've been watching this, occasionally not all of those things get hit. I have a list I've written down so that I will never miss anything. Do I ever refer to the list? No, I do not. That would not make sense. Of course, that would make perfect sense. Why do I not do that? But there it is. We can set up for the call-in show. That happens in about an hour. Let's get ready for that. I think we're pretty much ready to go. Pretty much. We got a few other things here to get ready to go. Oh, Jim's taking his A+ tomorrow. This will be the last run through. Get that A+. Jack got certified last month. Last week, I guess. Well done. That's always good. That's a good feeling. Two minutes. Sounds like something I need to prepare for. Plus, I have to make sure I have coffee. See the important things. Let's see how. Here we go. Little Timmy's today. Timmy. What would we do without Tim? That is my my Tim Hortons that I always keep here because Mrs. Professor Messer is Canadian. Well, technically not Canadian, but yes, technically yes, a Canadian, but born in the United States. So she's a United States citizen. Done this before, so it's a whole thing. But we keep a lot of Canadian stuff around. She has family in Canada, that kind of thing. So we try to keep track of what's going on. Their Thanksgiving is coming up shortly. Our Thanksgiving is coming up shortly. I can say that now. So that type of thing is going on. Oh, yes, Mr. Tim Horton. Oh, here in Florida, I have Tim Horton coffee. Yes, it's fantastic. It's remarkable. Just a little bit of Canada right there. Canada and very northern parts of the United States. So there's a little bit of that. We will talk about the questions and how to do all of these things in just a moment because we're about to get started. We are right at the top of the hour. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 2018 Professor Messer A-Plus Study Group from the world headquarters of Messer Studios here in Tallahassee, Florida. This is our monthly live A-Plus Q&A that I, your host, James Messer, provide for you to watch both live. If you're here live, you can answer those questions. And, of course, the replays are here immediately afterwards. So you can always tune in whenever you'd like, watch this month's study group, and of course you can watch all the previous study groups as well. There are a lot of things we're going to be going through in this study group. I have all new questions. I write all new questions for you every month. So these are questions you have never seen before, and I've written them so long, I sort of have never seen them before either. We'll have to figure out all of those things and get the details working with how all of those are operating. I'm also watching the chat room, by the way. So if you're watching this on the YouTube, you may want to move over to professormesser.com/live if this is indeed live. And there's a live chat room there where people are talking about things like Synergy, which is what I'm using in my studio right now to move back and forth between all of my systems. In fact, I have to turn it off right now because sometimes I accidentally move to another system that I forget about. We've got a few things. No true and false. This is a multiple choice and performance-based questions that we're going to do today. We've got a lot to go through. We do one of these every month. So if you're ever wondering when the next one's going to be, there's a calendar on the website. You can always find out about that. We do Q&A for this first hour. In the second hour, I just open up phone lines, and you can ask any question you'd like of me in the chat room. You can call in on the phone lines. You can do whatever you'd like. You can. I don't know if I'll answer any question, but you're welcome to ask any question. Say it that way. Don't forget about subscribing on YouTube. As if you haven't been told this a million times from the other YouTube videos you've been watching, subscribing to the YouTube channel, surprisingly, is incredibly useful for us. If you're someone who is a YouTube creator, you know that the folks back in Google really take notice of those subscription numbers. And thanks to you subscribing, I have someone at YouTube that I can talk to about questions that I have about my site, that I have about my YouTube channel. They help me create more videos for you. So subscribing not only helps me, I like to think that it helps you as well. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube to hit that subscribe button. There's also A-plus pop quiz questions every day on the Twitter. Go to professormesser.com/Twitter, and you can follow me there. And unfortunately, I don't have the vouchers available on my site anymore. I need to update that slide, but that was something that hopefully I'll be able to bring back for you shortly. Don't forget that you'll also get a CEU available. I'll be giving sometime in this hour, in this first hour, a special code and instructions on how I can send you a digitally signed email that certifies that you must have been here. So there is that, at least, that you'll have something that you, from me, that says, yes, you must have watched this. I'll give you all the instructions. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Sometime during this first hour, be listening out for that. Sometimes you miss those things coming through. And for A+, you can earn 4 CEUs from a webinar like this towards your 3-year renewal. So unfortunately, you can't watch all of my study groups to earn all of the CEUs you'd like, but you can at least watch 4 of them and earn the CEUs that way. We're going to be talking about questions that come directly from the CompTIA 22901 and the 22902 exam. These were exams that were released on December the 15th, 2015. So we're coming up on about a 3-year update cycle. So sometime in the December-January timeframe, we expect to see an updated exam from CompTIA. However, this current exam that we are currently working with, the 901 and the 902, traditionally have been available for 6 months after that. So you're really looking about the summer of next year, of 2019, before you would ever see these particular exams go away. I mentioned that because it's important. If you're studying, keep studying. If you haven't started studying, start studying. You have plenty of time to get through both the 22901 and the 22902 before they are retired. And quite honestly, I've already seen the updated exam objectives. They are very close to what we're looking at now. There are not a huge number of changes. It is not a complete rewrite. It is a simple revision over the last 3 years. So keep studying, keep doing what you're doing. It's much more important that you have this certificate in your pocket than ever having to wait and not have it. So it's pretty important to have those things there. And in the chat room, they're asking questions regarding that, as if I've not even said that out loud. So hopefully they were watching the live stream just then, and they'll know exactly when the 901 and 902 may be updated. Now, remember that if you already have earned your 800 series, you already have the A+ certification, you can renew a lot of different ways. I have some on the screen right here, but some of the most popular are to take a higher level exam, and some of the newer ones are the CertMaster CE. They have a 3 to 6 online renewal process. So if you don't want to go through the process of getting CEUs and submitting them to CompTIA and counting all the CEUs and submitting CEU renewal fees, you can simply buy the CertMaster CE, and in 3 to 6 hours, you're renewed. So I've had people come to me and say, I'm at the last day of my renewal, and I have not renewed this, and I really want to keep it. What should I do? And I pointed them to the CertMaster CE. They went through it in a few hours, and they were renewed for 3 years. That was it. So there's a very easy way. CompTIA tries to make sure that you can maintain that A+ certification. That's a number of different ways to do that. There are 2 different exams for the A+, the 901 and the 902. You can see on the 901, we've got hardware, networking, mobile devices, and hardware network troubleshooting. The 902 is more operating system focused with Windows, Linux, Mac OS. We've got security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. So we're going to go through questions that apply to both of those today. And I'll mention as we go through what question is associated with which exam. Also on the website, I take these questions that we do and I put them into an online practice quiz. You can find that at professormesser.com/popquiz. There are literally hundreds of questions for the 901 and the 902 sitting there, absolutely free, 20 question chunks. You can really sit down for a few minutes, go through those 20 questions, see how you do. And it's questions that we've covered before in the study group. So as we go through more study groups, we put more of those questions in the pop quiz list, and that may be a good resource for you to use as you're trying to determine if you're really ready to take that exam. Let's see how much we can remember. If you're someone who wants to watch the video replay of this, they're, of course, always available on my website. But some of you like to have an audio version you can take in your car. There are podcast versions you can subscribe to. Go to professormesser.com/podcast, and you can subscribe to my A+ Network Plus Security Plus. If you have other listening things that you use, if you use iHeartRadio or Spotify, just search for Professor Messer, and you'll find the podcast will show up there as well. Well, today we're going to do questions. Finally, the way you do this is you pop open a new browser window. You go to professormesser.com/QA. That QA will take you directly to a third-party website called Socrative, and you will see there is a question waiting for you on the screen. So there, you'll know that you're there because there's a question that you'll be able to work with. Now, some of you have the app on your mobile device. You can get that app from Google Play, from the Apple App Store. Go to the Socrative student app. That student app may ask you for a room name. And that room name, as we can see here, is Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser. Make sure you spell that right, or you'll be in a room with no questions. There will be nothing for you to see in that room, and nobody wants that. So make sure you get those right as well. What you'll see if you typed all of these things in and you did all of this crazy things that I see here, you will have a question waiting for you. And the question is, a security administrator has blocked TCP 445 at the corporate firewall to the internet. Which of these would be impacted by this configuration? So the real question is, an impact TCP 445, would it be A, querying statistics from a router, B, transferring files from a Windows file share, C, automatic IP addressing, D, translation between a fully qualified domain name and an IP address, or E, encrypted terminal communications? So if you're on the right page, you've gone to professormesser.com/QA, then you can see all of these. And as you can see, I can see in real time exactly how you're answering. This is a question from last month. So this is our test question to make sure that you can get into Socrative. You can see the answers. Everything is working properly for you. There are other questions, and you're here. You can always ask in the chat room that you're not seeing things properly, you're not hearing things properly, and we'll be sure we address those as we go along. As you can see here, 67% of you have chosen B, transferring files from a Windows file share. 13% of you said E, encrypted terminal communications, and then almost a tie for third with A, querying statistics from a router at 5%, C, automatic IP addressing at 6%, and D, translation between fully qualified domain name and IP address at 7%. So, real questions, of course. when dealing with any of these, especially with TCP ports, is you need to know more than just the TCP port number and the protocol associated with it. You need to understand what's happening with that protocol. And a TCP 445 would be used by SMB, server message block. This is the protocol used by Windows to perform a number of different functions, to share files, to transfer files, to be able to print to different printers on the network. SMB is used for a great deal of things in Windows. And the modern version of SMB, where two devices are communicating directly to each other using IP, is using TCP 445, which is a NetBIOS less, a non-NetBIOS version of SMB that simply uses IP. That's pretty much how most of our devices communicate these days. So you don't need that NetBIOS transport involved. So if you ever see TCP 445, you should say, well, that's SMB. And I know that SMB does a lot of different things in Windows, like file sharing and printer sharing. So you should be able to see that B, transferring files from a Windows file share, 72% of you got that one right. So that's where all of those things should come from. And notice it's a multi-step process. This is something that you will find very common on the CompTIA exam, is they're not going to ask you for definitions. They're not going to ask you what an acronym stands for. They're instead going to go much deeper than that. They're going to automatically assume you know what a port number is, what type of protocol it is, and what the protocol is associated with and how it works, and then ask you other questions associated with that, like the one we did here. So that's an important thing to remember. Make sure as we go through these questions today, you keep those things in mind, because I do try to make those multi-step questions just like the ones you're going to get on your exam. Another thing that you will get on your exam is a question that at the very beginning of your exam is not multiple choice. In fact, you'll get a handful of questions at the beginning of your exam that are not multiple choice questions. CompTIA calls these performance-based questions. What that really means is they are anything but a multiple choice question. They're fill in the blank. They're a matching. They ask you to put things in order from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. It may be a drag and drop question asking you to fill in different things on an image or a screen. So the question that I like to give you at the very beginning of our study groups, and you can go back over the last couple of years, there's a performance-based question at the very beginning of every study group, and we have one now, of course, for you. So here's your performance-based question of the month. This one asks, order these technologies from lowest throughput to highest. And these are 5 different technologies. So these technologies are A, SATA Revision 3.0, B is USB 3.0, C is 802.11g, D is Thunderbolt V1, and E is IEEE 1394B. Now, if you know the answer to this, do not mention it in the chat room. Please do not put any hints in the chat room. We want to instead put them into the Socrative. Go to professormesser.com/QA and you can answer this. Now, obviously, you don't have to type these out. If you think they're already in order from lowest throughput to highest, you can put A, B, C, D, E. All done. Now, they are not in that order, by the way. They are not A, B, C, D, E. So, of course, you will need to put them in order and make sure you put them in the right order. That's an important consideration for the exam as well. Those technologies, again, SATA Revision 3.0, USB 3.0, 802.11g, Thunderbolt V1, and IEEE 1394B. Which ones are lowest, which ones are highest? And remember what you put down, because when you submit it into Socrative, it doesn't tell you what your answer was. It sort of disappears. So if you can order those technologies in the right way, we're going to break through all of these and really see what the differences are from those. Folks in the chat were saying, how many performance-based questions are you going to get on your exam? Well, it just depends. We really don't know. And CompTIA is one where you can't tell anybody what you did. You sign, whenever you start the exam, you sign a candidate exam agreement that says you won't say anything about the exam. So what I do know of it, because I didn't sign an exam agreement, is that usually about a handful. It's usually about 5 plus or minus. You can think of it that way. So you're never sure exactly how many you get, but it's not a huge number. In fact, some people we'll take the strategy of jumping over those, doing all the multiple choice, and then circling back to the performance-based questions at the end. Just depends on how you react to these types of exams, how comfortable you are answering performance-based questions right out of the gate, or if it's easier for you to take the multiple choice, sort of settle in a little bit, and then circle back. The CompTIA exam allows you to jump around to any question at any time, which is a little bit different than other industry exams. You may want to be able to take advantage of that. Let's go through this list. Order these technologies from lowest throughput to highest. The lowest throughput on this list is 802.11g, answer number C. That's not a number. Answer letter C, 802.11g. And 802.11g operates at 54 megabits per second. So that is definitely the lowest of all of those on that list. So let's figure out what the next one happens to be. The next fastest, since we're going from lowest technology to highest, the next highest technology would be IEEE 1394B, which operates at 800 megabits per second. That's FireWire. For those of you familiar, there's a lot of different names for IEEE 1394B. FireWire is a very common one. iLink, there's other terms that other manufacturers will use. We've also, let's look at the third highest throughput would be USB 3.0, which operates at 5 gigabits per second. So you can see we're getting a little bit faster, and a little bit faster, a little bit faster. Just above 5 gigabits per second is SATA Revision 3.0 at 6 gigabits per second. So a little bit higher in speed. Well, that, of course, would leave the last option as Thunderbolt V1, and there are 10 gigabit per second speeds on this old version now of Thunderbolt. If you've got Thunderbolt V1, you probably have a much older computer. These days, we're up to Thunderbolt V3 at 40 gigabits a second. Actually, there's faster versions of Thunderbolt also that are out and you can take advantage of. But the ones you need to know for your A+ exam are V1, V2, and V3. So this is an important consideration if you're trying to figure out how to work through these performance-based questions. This is a very common one to be able to do that. So the answers here are C, 802.11g, E, IEEE 1394B, B, USB 3.0, A is SATA Revision 3.0, and D is Thunderbolt V1. So we've got a lot of different things we need to know. And on this one, we not only need to know the technologies and the speeds, we need to be able to put them all in order, and we need to make sure we're looking at the right order as well. Because as you can see here, the order is from lowest throughput to highest on your exam. Make sure you put them in the right order when you're working through those. So there's your performance-based question of the month. Hopefully a number of you did good with that one. This is one where tune in every month. I've got a new performance-based question that's a different style every time. These aren't always putting things in order. I've got other ones that we occasionally will do. So make sure you check back for those every month. And if you'd like to look at the replays, of course, you can go back and look at that first question every month and figure out those details as well. Let's jump to some multiple choice-based questions, though. Some that will not be performance-based. These you'll be able to choose from different options. And our first multiple choice question this month is, a company would like to protect all user data sent across the network when working outside the office. Which of these technologies would provide this security? Would it be A, a DLP appliance? Would it be B, multi-factor authentication? Would it be C, a host-based firewall? Would it be D, a VPN concentrator? Or would it be E, full disk encryption? So we've got 5 options to choose from. This scenario is that a company would like to protect all user data sent across the network when working outside the office. Which of these technologies would provide this security? Is it a DLP appliance, multi-factor authentication, host-based firewall, VPN concentrator, or full disk encryption? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and you can answer on Socrative. Please don't put any answers into the chat room. Please don't put any tips into the chat room. Don't give anybody any ideas. Please do not Google from your computer. You want to instead perhaps try to consider that this might be an exam. Just as you're sitting in the exam room, you don't have Google available, there's no chat room. Take your best guess And on the exam, by the way, make sure you take a guess. You never want to leave any question blank on the exam. As we've come to realize, because CompTIA doesn't share their grading mechanisms, but apparently, if you answer a question incorrectly, they don't take points away from you. So one of the things that's important is that you answer every question, because that's the only way you can gain particular answers. And folks in the chat room wondering, is there more than one answer here? There's only one answer. Which of these would provide this security? There's only one of these available. In fact, if I look at this list, only one of those would really be the one that would solve this particular issue. Whenever I do these, I generally do not do a multiple answer for those, being able to work through those different pieces. I'm going to take a sneak peek as we're going through this and figuring out. A number of you already answered this one, so let's see how we did. So a company wants to protect all user data sent across the network and working outside the office, which would provide this security. 60% of you chose D, VPN concentrator. We have almost a three-way tie for second, with B, multi-factor authentication, C, a host-based firewall, and E, full disk encryption. And only 4% chose A, a DLP appliance. So which one of those would be the right one to work through? Well, in this particular case, we need to look at the requirements of the question very carefully, which say a company wants to protect all user data sent across the network. Now, that doesn't mean they won't use other technologies, but this question is only concerned with user data sent across the network. So if you did answer D, VPN concentrator, this is exactly what a VPN is designed to do, which is protect all of the data sent across the network. So for example, if you were somebody, you're sitting in a coffee shop on your laptop, and you're concerned that other people in the coffee shop on this open access point may be sniffing the air. They may be performing packet captures in that room. So what you can do is enable VPN software on your laptop that creates an encrypted tunnel back to a VPN concentrator at your corporate headquarters. Now all of the communication between this laptop and this VPN concentrator are completely encrypted. And on many cases, your VPN software is set up so that everything you send out of your laptop is going into that tunnel. So this is whenever you look through these, this becomes pretty useful to have this functionality, because now nobody can understand any of the traffic that you happen to be sending out of your laptop. Now, of course, this means nobody at your corporate headquarters would be able to understand any of that traffic either. But fortunately, the VPN concentrator's job is to take that encrypted data, decrypt it, and send it on to the inside so that you can access printers, you can access file shares, you can communicate to your email server. This is a way that you can protect everything up to the point of that VPN concentrator. And it's a very, very common way to provide security over those network links for people that are traveling outside of the building. So if you did answer D, VPN concentrator, that's absolutely correct. Now, why would it be one of those other answers, though? Let's go through these. We have that tie for three-way tie for second. One was multi-factor authentication. And of course, when you are authenticating into the VPN concentrator or authenticating into any service, it's nice if you're asked multiple things. Maybe you need to have a username, a password. Maybe they send you an SMS message with a token. Maybe you have a token generator application or a physical token generator with you. Maybe there's biometrics that can be used. All of those multiple factors of authentication are very useful when you're authenticating, but they have nothing to do with how secure the data is that's going over the network. In fact, all of those authentication methods could be sent in the clear over the network. They generally are not. Nobody wants to have their password sent in the clear over the network, but multi-factor authentication by itself doesn't provide any security of the data. We also have C, host-based firewall. And host-based firewall is great for preventing someone from attacking your system, but it has nothing to do with encryption of data or security of that data as it's going across the network. Full disk encryption, certainly as the name tells you, is protecting data. It's encrypting the data, but only the data that's on your local hard drive. This question is asking very specifically about user data sent across the network. So if you have a local storage device, a hard drive, an SSD, anything that's in your laptop, all of that data is encrypted. So if somebody stole your laptop, they wouldn't be able to gain access to that data. But we're concerned in this question about data going over the network. So pretty important to have that there. And the last one is DLP appliance. Data loss prevention is great to be able to prevent somebody from sending private information in the clear across your network, prevent somebody from sending a social security number, prevent somebody from throwing off something else associated with that. So that's a very good option whenever you're working through trying to prevent somebody from sending out that very important sensitive data, but has nothing to do with making sure that all of the data going over the network is encrypted. So make sure to have those there. That would be one that makes sense. So hopefully that's one that makes sense for you. So for those of you in the chat room, you were looking at this and wondering which one is it, hopefully that's giving you some coverage of all of those different options. And as I mentioned, as we go through these questions, there's only one option that's available unless I tell you otherwise. So hopefully that will help you as we go forward with these multiple choice questions. In fact, I have another multiple choice question. So let's do another one. I've got one associated with this very quickly before we finish that. This question comes directly from the 220-902 exam. The video associated with this is video in section 3.2. The video name is Digital Security Prevention Methods. So if you're trying to find more details for this one, that would be a good one to go with. Hopefully that's one that can also help you as you're trying to figure out where did that question come from. Maybe those things can help you out as you step through all of those pieces. Let's do another question. I'll bring it up on my screen. This question, next one we have, this multiple choice question asks, what type of storage device combines a spinning hard drive with SSD memory? What type of storage device combines a spinning hard drive with SSD memory? Would it be A, hot swappable drive? Would it be B, an LTO drive? Would it be C, a digital versatile disk? Would it be D, a hybrid drive? Or would it be E, eSATA? So we've got 5 options available. Maybe you know or have worked with these types of drives before that combine a spinning hard drive with SSD memory. Would it be a hot swappable drive, an LTO drive, a digital versatile disk, a hybrid drive, or eSATA? So maybe one of those makes sense for you. Maybe you've gone through these before and know what those are. Hopefully you'll be able to work through all of those different pieces. This is one, whenever I start working through trying to figure out what these answers are, it might be easier to get rid of the things you know it isn't. This is what's great about multiple choice, of course, is we can get rid of some. Maybe get rid of 50% of them or more, and that would give you a better option to be able to have all of those available. So if you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please do not put any comments in the chat room or any tips or any hints or any answers. You want to figure out what type of storage device combines that spinning drive with all of those details. Maybe you've been able to work through this. This is, by the way, coming directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure that you are referencing those exam objectives as you go through your 220-901 and your 220-902 exam. It becomes pretty useful to have that. Make sure you use those. Let's see how we did with this one. You folks are very quick to answer on this one and have all of those pieces there. This might be able to help you out because, as you can see, 87% of you said hybrid drive. You think that a combination of a spinning hard drive with SSD memory is a hybrid drive. Well, is it? Well, of course it is. Hybrid drive is exactly what that is, a solid state hybrid drive, or an SSHD. Inside is both a spinning hard drive and an SSD all in one device. The benefit here, at least theoretically, is that you would have the larger storage available in a spinning hard drive at a very reasonable cost, but you would also have some, at least a little bit of speed available from the SSD that is also included in this drive. There's many types of configurations for hybrid drives. Maybe part of the drive is set up as SSD and another part is set up as the traditional spinning hard drive. Some people also have this set up so that we're doing caching with the SSD. So you can save data into the SSD, and behind the scenes, the SSD will continue to write information to the hard drive, but you've already continued on from that point. So hopefully that will be helpful. The real benefit here is cost. It's one that combines the large storage area of a spinning drive with hopefully a little bit of the speed that you can get from an SSD whenever you're looking at these. And if you were to look at them, they look exactly the same as a traditional hard drive. They have exactly the same storage type of form factor. So if you have a traditional 3.5-inch hard drive in your desktop computer, you can replace that with a 3.5-inch hybrid drive and have one that has the combination of those. And if you've ever worked with SSDs, you know SSDs usually are 2.5-inch drives. There's other types of SSDs like M.2. You've got other options and form factors for those, but many SSDs have those available in that 2.5-inch style. So if we go back and look at our list, you can see that 88% of you, didn't fool anybody there, said hybrid drive. We've also got 5% that said eSATA. eSATA, of course, being the external version of SATA, which doesn't imply the type of drive it is, only the type of connectivity to the drive. So that eSATA connection could be a spinning hard drive, it could be a hybrid drive, it could be an SSD. We just don't know. You've also got hot swappable drives, which again could be really any SATA type of drive. So hot swappable is not the combination of a spinning hard drive with SSD memory. A hot swappable drive could be any type of drive. An LTO drive is a tape drive. That is a backup medium that's very commonly used. So LTO is certainly one that you want to be able to go and understand for your A+ exam. It's on that exam list. And the digital versatile disk, that's a DVD. That is not a hybrid drive. That's an optical configuration. We all know what DVDs are, and that's what that digital versatile disk happens to be. So if you answered D, hybrid drive, you got that absolutely correct. Now, I mentioned earlier about the M2 drives. M2 drives are not part of the 229.901 and 229.02. They have become very popular lately, so you will probably see M2 drives mentioned perhaps on the next version of the A+. Don't worry about them for the current version. Not something that you will need to know. Let's shift gears a little bit. I'm going to look at a few things here quickly that are popping up on my screen just to make sure we are all in good shape. And one of the things you'll find as you start stepping through these exams, both the 229.901 and the 229.02, is that there is an extensive amount of information you need to know. So make sure as you're going through these exams and trying to understand the details of these exams that you follow everything that is in the exam objectives. One of the challenges, though, is that there's a lot of information in the exam objectives. So if you are going through all of my videos and you're taking notes and you're writing everything down, that's an important thing to have available. But not all of you have the time to go through all of my videos because there's hardware, networking, laptops, printers, operating systems, command line tools, mobile devices, and more and more and more and more. The A+ exam is extensive with the things that are expected of that. And so I have taken all of the important information from my videos and I put them into a series of course notes. These are the Professor Messer course notes for the 229.01 and the 229.02. And they take the important details from all of my videos, the graphics, the information that I have available from pictures, all of those on the 901 and the 902, and I put them into very easy to use PDFs that you can use anytime on any system you would like. So, of course, these are not documents that are restricted. These are not documents that you can only read in a certain application. These are PDF files that you can put on any mobile device, on your laptops, on your desktops, on anything that can read a PDF. So wherever you happen to be, if you're standing in line somewhere, you can pop it open on your phone and go through it. If you're sitting at home, you can open your tablet and look through it. You can look at it on your laptop or your other computer. These are things that should help you. They don't replace a book. They don't replace the videos, but they are a good way to summarize all of the important salient points from those 229.01 and 229.02 exam objectives into a single set of documents. So if you're somebody who wants to have that last minute study effort but you don't want to have to flip through that big book to try to find the information you need or watch the videos again. You may want to have a look at these. You can find out more about these at professormesser.com/A+CN, APLUSCN for the A+ course notes. And of course, all of my videos are free to watch. My entire course is available for free. This is another way that you might be able to help contribute to keeping the website going. So all of these lights that always have to be turned on have to be paid from somewhere. So I appreciate all of your support for this. This is something, every dollar of this goes back to keeping everything here running. So thank you so much for your ongoing support with these course notes. Find out more about those, professormesser.com/A+CN. So let's go to another multiple choice question. I've got more here. Here's our next question, and this is a Windows question. The question asks, when starting Windows, a technician receives this message: Windows did not shut down successfully. That's not a very good message. Which of the following would be the best way to resolve this issue? Which of these would be the best way to resolve this issue? Would it be A, launch startup repair? Would it be B, check the cables for all storage devices? Would it be C, update the boot configuration database? Would it be D, use the last known good configuration? Or would it be E, start in VGA mode? So you've got 5 options there for this question where a technician starting Windows and receives this message: Windows did not shut down successfully. Which of the following would be the best way to resolve this issue? Would it be A, launch startup repair; B, check the cables for all storage devices; C, update the boot configuration database; D, use the last known good configuration; and E, start in VGA mode. One of those is going to be the best way to resolve this issue. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can answer that one as well. That may be one that you've run into before. Windows is very good at giving you these types of problems that you may have run into before, and maybe that is one that you recognize. Whenever I start trying to go through all of these and figure out, what do I do? What do I find? What's the answer to these? Hopefully it's one you're familiar with. There's a whole section on the 22902 exam that does ask you about troubleshooting Windows, and this is one of the issues that is specifically listed in the exam objectives. So make sure that you are familiar with the things that could pop up on your screen. Obviously, with Windows, a million things could pop up on your screen, but there's probably 90% of what you will see in Windows as far as error messages is listed in the 22902 exam objectives as things you should be familiar with. And in my videos, I step through all of them and give you what the best option is for resolving that problem. Because we all know Windows is very good when it comes to resolving problems. That's one problem you do run into. Let's see how we did with this particular one. How do we do? Let's check. We're a little torn on this one. 50% of you, right in the middle, have said A, launch startup repair. 39% of you, 40% of you have said D, use the last known good configuration. So, and then 7% said start in VGA mode, 3% said update the boot configuration database, and 0% said check the cables for all storage devices. I don't know. I'm the 0%, I guess. I always think it's some type of hardware problem first thing. Probably incorrectly, as you have seemed to have figured out from this particular question. So if you get a message that says Windows did not shut down successfully, you'll probably see a message that pops up that is something sort of like this right here. So we've seen this before in our Windows, the Windows error recovery window popping up on our screen. That's one that you'll run into. Windows failed to start, a recent hardware software change. Or it may say that Windows did not shut down successfully and tells you those details about it. You have this message on the error recovery. So you have a number of different options. In fact, this error recovery says launch startup repair, which they even tell you that's recommended because maybe there's a problem here. And you could, of course, say, no, I'm much smarter than you, Windows. I would like you to start Windows normally. So you can hit the down arrow and then enter to get things going. Now, hopefully, maybe the normal recovery, maybe starting Windows normally might work for you if the problem is very minor. But you may just run into the same problem again because it's not really repairing anything associated with it. Windows has integrated the startup repair program so that it can go through the issues, understand if there are anything that might be causing a problem or things that might be causing a problem. This is a good way to do that from this Windows error recovery window. Perhaps even more important, in the latest version of Windows, Microsoft is taking a little bit more of the control away from the technician and doing a lot more in these automated startup repairs. So hopefully this is one, if you've run into this, this actually works very well in Windows 10, works pretty well in Windows 7, probably not very good they're just really getting things going prior to that. But launching startup repair is a very good option. And from the options that we had, that was the only one really available, because the question, as you can say, as C says, which of the following would be the best way to resolve this issue based on Microsoft's recommendation and the recommendation that is on the screen of the Windows error recovery screen? Your best option is indeed A, launch startup repair. 51% of you got that one absolutely right. Would not be to use the last known good configuration. We're starting up our Windows and says Windows did not shut down successfully. Well, that's the last known good configuration we used. So using the last known good configuration is the one that's giving us the problem. So that probably is not going to help you very much if you're trying to get rid of this issue. You're simply telling Windows, oh, the thing that's causing the problem, let's absolutely use that. That's a great idea. That's not a great idea at all. That's not going to help you at all. 1% of you said check the cables of all storage devices. The message that we're getting is one where Windows has already started. We've already gone to the boot sector. We've already started up our Windows startup process. It's even launched Windows and said, wait, before I keep going, I didn't shut down successfully. So at that point, we already know the storage device is working fine. It's Windows that's having a problem for this. So that's whenever you start looking through these and trying to figure out, how do I make this happen? How does this work? What should we do? It's not going to have anything to do with storage. Check updating the boot configuration database. Similar answer. We already know that the BCD is working properly because Windows has already started. And it's telling us that Windows had a problem shutting down. So we know that the BCD is just fine. The boot configuration database is not the issue. So that's not the problem there as well. And starting in VGA mode, if we can see it on the screen, then VGA mode is not, the mode of the video is not our issue. So absolutely think about those as you're going through the details of what you need to know. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense to you. In fact, the only option here is not even a choice between two of them. The only option here that would be the best way to resolve this issue, which the question asks, is A, launch startup repair. And in the chat room, people are going, oh, but there's other things that you could do. Absolutely, there's other things that you could do. That wasn't the question. And you will see this in your exam when you take this, is you're wanting to do so many things, but this is a question that is built unto itself. You must interpret the question and the answers and not go outside of this, because we're trying to determine if you happen to know what the best would be given the options available to you. And that's exactly what this asks. Which of the following would be the best way to resolve this issue? Not based on your experience in doing any of these things, what would you do? No, it's saying you've got 5 options. These are the only things available to you for whatever reason, which happens to be pretty accurate in the way things are in the real world. A, launch startup repair is the only one that really does work with that. So yes, have you tried turning it off and back on again is probably the proper answer. That wasn't listed there on those pieces either. Launch startup repair is the right answer for this one. Let's do another question. I've got another multiple choice available to you. That question, by the way, we flip back to those pieces, comes from the 22902 4.1. That's section 4.1. And the video name is Operating System Troubleshooting. So good. And those in the chat room, make sure you keep putting those questions in there. Like questions like, why is there no chat on YouTube? Because there's chat right there on the website at professormesser.com/live. But let's do another question. Here's one that is now changed on your screen. The question asks, a network administrator is configuring a firewall rule to allow TCP/23 between two devices in your network. What kind of network communication would you expect to see between those devices? What type of network communication would you expect to see between those two devices that are configured with a firewall rule to allow TCP/23? Would it be A, file transfers? Would it be B, name resolutions? Would it be C, unencrypted terminal communication? Would it be D, remote desktop management? Would it be E, Windows file sharing? One of those is going to be your right answer. A network administrator is configuring a firewall rule to allow TCP/23 between two devices in your network. What kind of network communication would you expect to see between these devices? Would it be A, file transfers, B, name resolutions, C, unencrypted terminal communications, D, remote desktop management, or E, Windows file sharing? Hopefully you know the answer. If you do, go to professormesser.com/QA. Put your answer in there. Please, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. We need to be able to break down what this happens to be. This is a pretty common scenario. In fact, this is very common to the first question, the rewind question we had earlier, where we've got a firewall. There's a network administrator. He's making configuration changes to the firewall. What does that mean? That is probably as close to what happens normally day to day from a security administrator's perspective that you'll get. That's a very common thing, to be able to work through all of these different pieces. So make sure you break out what the important pieces of information here. Make sure you go through what you know of that important information. See if you happen to know what they happen to be. If you think you do, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can answer this one. Obviously, by the way, there's only you can only do this while we're live. If you are watching this on the replay, the professormesser.com/QA will take you to a room where nothing is happening. You have to be here live for that. And of course, you can always check the calendar on the website when the next live event's going to be at professormesser.com/calendar. Maybe that would be a good one to choose. Let's see how we did with this one and network administrators and firewall rules. How do we do? Well, we're a little torn. We have C, 45% of us said C, unencrypted terminal communication, but 25% of us said A, file transfers. 17% of us said D, remote desktop management. 9% said E, Windows file sharing, and only 4% said B, name resolutions. So the important part here, obviously, we're configuring a firewall, so some of this information will be going back and forth over this screen. We've got a challenge because TCP/23 is what's being filtered or allowed in this particular firewall. In this case, we're allowing that port between two devices, and we're asking, what are we really expecting to see between those devices? Well, TCP port 23 is, if you're familiar with that port number, Telnet. Telnet, the telecommunications network. That's what that stands for. Nobody calls it that. Everybody just calls it Telnet. This is a console front end that allows us to access devices that are across the network over a non-encrypted channel, an in the clear channel, as we say in the security world. This is one that does not have any encryption. There is no data security between devices using Telnet. If you were to type in a username and a password into this Telnet session and somebody was looking at that, they were capturing that data, they were pulling this off of a wireless network, they would see your username and they would see your password. So pretty important to keep that in mind. That's why we really don't use Telnet very much. There's some very specific use cases where Telnet is still used today. People in the chat room are mentioning Windows 10 doesn't include Telnet by default. And there's, of course, you can add Telnet to Windows 10, certainly. There's different options there available. So that's one where having that telecommunications capability over this non-encrypted channel may not be ideal for your infrastructure devices, but there are some very specific use cases where this may be useful. For example, if you have older equipment that doesn't support SSH, Telnet may be the only thing you can use to be able to do that. Telnet also, by the way, is a very good way to check to see if a particular port number is open on a device. You can Telnet to a different port than port TCP/23. So if you think that somebody has port 445 open, you can telnet to port 445, maybe put some text in there and see if you can get a response back from that device, sort of as a very simple netcat, if you will, by using telnet. It's a very quick way if you're a security person. Hey, can I get to that port number on that device? Let's try use telnet to do that, being able to make that happen. So make sure that if you're doing anything relating to a secure connection, really use SSH. Never use telnet. Only use telnet if you have no other choice whatsoever to communicate to that device. And even then, maybe don't use it. Maybe you go directly to the device and don't do that unless you're on a very, very, very secure network. And then that makes a lot of sense. So if you did answer C, unencrypted terminal communication, that is telnet, that is TCP port 23. In fact, in this scenario, somebody had to use telnet. They told the network administrator he configured the firewall rule to only allow telnet between two devices on the network. So not everybody gets to use telnet, just between those two devices. Very smart of that network administrator. The answer is C, unencrypted terminal communication. A, file transfers. There's a lot of different ways to do file transfers over FTP, over SSH, over FTPS. There's a lot of different ways to make that happen. None of those ways use TCP port 23. We also have name resolutions. That is more DNS. A UDP 53, that's definitely not TCP 23. It's on the wrong protocol and the wrong port number. You've got remote desktop management for RDP and other types of similar protocols like TCP 3389. So that's not going to be TCP 23. And they got Windows file sharing, which we just did in the very first rewind question, which was a TCP 445. So we know that's not going to be TCP 23. The only one that really applies here is C, unencrypted terminal communication. 47% of you got that one absolutely right. Let's get another. We got time for another multiple choice question. Let's do one. By the way, this comes, before I go on, directly from the 22901 exam, section 2.4, common TCP and UDP ports in that second domain of networking of the 22901 exam. Here's our next question. A user has been experiencing random slowdowns in Windows 7 during the workday. Which of the following would be the best choice to gather operating system statistics throughout the day? Not easy to say out loud. A user has been experiencing random slowdowns in Windows 7 during the workday. Which of the following would be the best choice to gather operating system statistics throughout the day? Would it be A, performance monitor? Would it be B, task manager? Would it be C, event viewer? Would it be D, computer management? Or would it be E, reliability monitor? Those answers again are A, performance monitor, B, task manager, C, event viewer, D, computer management, or E, reliability monitor. Which one of those would be the best choice for this? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Q for Q, A for A, as we say around here. And that's one way that you can answer these. Make sure you answer there and not in the chat room. No hints in the chat room, please. Maybe you've even run into this. These are annoying problems, aren't they? That are random. They're slowing down the system. I ran into a random slowdown problem yesterday. And you have to go back and now figure out how do I gather operating system statistics throughout the day? What process am I going to go through to do that? That's where you would get this answer from. Hopefully you're familiar enough with those Windows functions to be able to make a determination, because each one of those answers, by the way, are real things. Those are all Windows things. Those are all utilities you could use to do certain things. But which one is the right one? If you think you know the answer, professormesser.com/QA. Make sure you go through all of those. So this is really a very specific question asking for a very specific answer. Some of you are saying, I can use multiples of these. Yes, but the question didn't ask you for multiples of these. It asks you, which of the following would be the best choice to gather operating system statistics throughout the day? And when you look at it in that context, there can only be one answer that gives you that. So hopefully that's one where you've worked through all of those details to be able to work through those. I think some of you did know this one. Let's see how we did with this. Let's click that button. 62% of you said a performance monitor, but 22% of you said event viewer. 9% of you said task manager, 4% of you said reliability monitor, and only 2% of you said computer management. So we've really got two to choose from. We've got a majority of 63% of you saying, well, that's performance monitor. But 22% of you said, no, that's event viewer. And 9% of you that are hardcore said task manager. I know you people. I know why you would choose that one to have that choice. But is it really performance monitor? Well, let's look at what we were trying to do throughout the day. We were having the slowdown problem. We want to be able to gather statistics throughout the entire business day. So we're talking 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening, perhaps, and being able to really go back over time to find out if somebody's having an issue. You can't be standing next to their desk all day. That's not practical. It's certainly not efficient. You have other things you need to do, but you never know when the slowdown is going to happen. So what you want to do is start up Performance Monitor and have it start gathering statistics. And you can have Performance Monitor gather all kinds of different statistics. We can look at disk information, CPU details. We can gather network information. We can gather information from memory. So we might want to collect a number of different metrics on this particular system and just store those over time. Maybe you want a list of processes that are running. These are all things that can be done. And we can store all of this information for retrieval later. So we can go through the entire day, and the person will tell them whenever this happens again, write down what time it occurred. And that way at the end of the day, they can tell you it happened at 11:05 and it happened at 3:07. And now you can go back to your performance monitor at those specific times and understand what was happening on the system during that time frame. Was it CPU related? Was it disk related? Was it an issue with an application? Now we want to know more. Performance Monitor can tell you all of that and much more. It can set alarms and alerts. You can have reports that it can create. There's a lot in there in Performance Monitor. So if we look at all of our things that are associated with what we're doing, Performance Monitor is certainly the best choice for gathering operating statistics throughout the day. The 63% of you that answered A got this one correct. Now, why wouldn't it be C, Event Viewer? Event Viewer gives you all that information. It gives you tons of information about disk access and CPU and the services that are running and the processes that are happening and all of the details about memory. They are all in there. And that Event Viewer, that's great for knowing what's happening at that very moment. But Event Viewer doesn't store that information anywhere. It doesn't allow you to gather those statistics over any time frame. If you're looking at Event Viewer, you'll know what those statistics are. If you're not looking at Event Viewer, then you don't know what those statistics are. And it doesn't collect them and store them. I can't report on them. I can't view them up later. I can't do anything except at the moment. Event Viewer is great for that at the moment view of the world, of course, but it doesn't help you for long-term analysis. So that would not be the right answer. It would not be Task Manager. Task Manager doesn't allow. Event Viewer is giving us tons of log information. And I can go back over time and look at the Event Viewer for all of that log information. Task Manager is even more detailed than that because I can really get down to individual what's happening in my system with CPU, what's happening in my system with memory, rather than looking through logs that are telling me exceptions to those that may have occurred with an application. In fact, Event Viewer probably has more information than anybody can really filter through these days. But Task Manager is very specific. I can look at a specific process. I can look at the memory utilization, CPU, disk access, and many, many other metrics associated with that. But again, only at that particular time of the day. Computer management, that's just a front end that allows me to see all of these different utilities at one time. And Reliability Monitor, although it's exceptionally useful, Reliability Monitor really provides me with a way to understand what big problems have occurred. So I can go back over time and perhaps look at a specific time frame, but it isn't giving me a lot of metrics. It's really just telling me, hey, a problem occurred at 11:05. Yeah, but you're not really telling me more than this. I could, of course, go back and look at logs at that time frame, but Event Viewer is only going to log that detail. It's not going to provide me the detailed metrics that I can get from Performance Monitor, and it's not going to provide me the real-time metrics I can get from Task Manager. In fact, Event Viewer almost has no metrics associated with it. So hopefully This is one where you would combine these things together. Maybe afterwards, once you have gathered the operating statistics throughout the day, and now that you have identified a particular problem at a particular time of the day, now you go to some of these other utilities like Event Viewer to go back in time and look at least log files that have occurred during that time frame. So that may be something you work through as well when you're working through those. In this case, only one thing can gather operating statistics throughout the day, log them, show you what's happening. That would be a performance monitor. And if you are watching this for continuing education unit credit, this is going to be the way that you do it. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There is a Contact Us link. In there, put your name, put your email address, put somewhere in there that this is the October A+ study group. And make sure somewhere in that message, I read all the messages sent in. You can just simply put these words in there, or you can put any message you'd like. Put the word reliability monitor. See, I mixed it up on you. Thought it was going to be performance monitor. It wasn't. Reliability monitor is what you want to put in there to be able to have that. This is one where if you want to be able to get that digitally signed email, that's the process you go through. You must follow that process. The process itself is part of the CEU. So that way I know that you at least watched up to this point, you followed those instructions, and you know what the specific code word is associated with this. We've gone through an hour of these questions. I have many more questions available for you. I have written literally hundreds, in this case, over 1,000 questions, 1,300 questions available when you combine both my 901 and my 902 Pop Quiz Collection PDFs. These are PDFs that have 700 questions for the 901, 600 questions for the 902, a combination of multiple choice question, performance-based questions. I've got study tips in there. It's all in a PDF file and ready for you to view. You can see all of this at professormesser.com/PQC, Pop Quiz Collection. Another great way to support the site, and I think another great way to really do some Q&A before you walk into that exam and see if that's something that might help you as well. Well, that is a lot of detail. There's a lot of things we went through for 1 hour of this. We've got a lot more to go through, though. We've got another hour of Q&A coming up where you just ask me questions. So we've got some of those available. Of course, we do one of these every month. If you're someone who'd like to follow and see when the next live event's going to be, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar. Make sure that you also check when the next one's going to be. The next one's going to be at November the 3rd, 2018. Make sure that you're also here on November the 3rd. Or if it's past November the 3rd, you're watching this on a replay, just go to professormesser.com/calendar. Next week, by the way, is my Network Plus study group. The week after that's my Security Plus study group. So you may want to come back for one of those study groups as well. That'd be another thing that you can do and have those available. If you're someone who just loves to sit here and listen to me talk and go through these questions, maybe see how much you know, be a great way to do it. Well, we've gone through this 1 hour. Stick around for the next hour. I've got open up the phone lines. We'll take questions from the chat room. We'll talk about whatever you'd like. We'll talk about anything but politics and religion. We'll stay away from those. If you want to talk about A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, the industry, gaming, your favorite cars, we'll talk about anything. But remember, we're always around on Twitter. Get your A+ pop quiz question of the day at professormesser.com/Twitter. I've got, of course, subscriptions on the YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube. Don't forget about my course notes and pop quiz collections on my site that you can find directly from the pull-down menus on the site, or you can follow the links there as well. And check the calendar for the next one of these that we're going to do. We'd love to have you here. It really is not the same without you. We really need you here participating if we're going to have questions and answers. Otherwise, it would be me answering the question with nobody else here, which probably not a high quality piece of information to view. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating. We really couldn't do it without you, and we couldn't do it without your ongoing support. Thank you for that. We've got another hour of Q&A. Stick around for that. Otherwise, we will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everyone. Well, I have to get the phone lines up and running. You can, of course, put questions into the chat room. I'm, of course, watching the chat room as we're going. as it's streaming by for those pieces. But let's get the phone lines up and running anyway. This is something I have to do on my side. So this is one. Everybody can just relax for a moment. There's nobody else here to get my phone lines up and running. I'm the only one in the room. It's just me. So I've got to get these pieces up and running on my screen. There's multiple parts involved. I've got a Skype here. I've got my show configuration here. So you're calling into the phone lines. We'll get that up and running. We'll start the show, get the queue there. There's a lot here to go through. Now, once I've done that, I can call in with the Skypey. I'm sorry, it bugs people when I call it a Skypey. It's a inside joke on the Skypey. Let's call in. Here we go. Beep, 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 beep. And it says,
"Thank you for..."
Well, you're welcome. And I'm going to type in the thing that it's probably asking for and put that into my screen. And it says,
"Enter your 6-digit PIN number."
Redundant. But let's type it in anyway. And type in this 9 and that and this number, and that's here. And it says, welcome host. Well, I'm there, which means you're there as well. If you would like to join us, you can call in anywhere from the continental United States at 855-785-7545, toll-free number, absolutely free on any device you would like. If you are on Skype, you can call in from anywhere in the world, absolutely free. No Skype minutes required by putting a +1 at the beginning, +1 855-785-7545. That's +1 855-785-RJ45. And that'll get you here. And you can call in and ask, I don't know, anything you'd like. In fact, we should find out what you'd like to ask by simply going to the first call, the 813 area code, somebody in my neck of the woods here in Florida, perhaps. 813, are you there? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, hi. My name is Sean. I'm calling from Tampa, Florida.
Yes, you are, Sean. Welcome, another Floridian. What can we do for you?
Great. So it's the first time I actually called into your show. Are we inquiring about A+ or Network Plus or any of the three of the trifecta?
It is literally open phone lines. I could spend the hour talking about what I've been doing in the division on Xbox for the next hour if we wanted to, but most of you are smart enough to keep this at least focused. So hit me with whatever you'd like, and we'll see how far we can go with it.
Sure. Well, I actually took the Network Plus, the last one that just expired recently, the 006, and now I'm actually studying the 007. What is the main difference that has been, I guess there's probably a lot that changed between the last version and the new version of the CompTIA Network Plus certification exam?
So are you saying that you were studying for the 006, but you weren't able to get the certification before it was retired?
Professor Messer, I did take the certification exam. Unfortunately, I failed by about 200 points.
So close. Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, well, the good part about this, though, and to answer your question a little more directly, is that the move from the 006 to the 007 was not an enormous rewrite of the certification. In fact, I mention this sometimes when people talk about going from the previous version of the Security Plus to the latest version of Security Plus. CompTIA effectively rewrote the certification, and I did a calculation, over 60% of the exam objectives were brand new in that set. Fortunately, you are not in that same position. There was relatively normal changes between the 006 and the 007. And if you go through both exam objectives and you were to count all of the different exam objectives and compare what is new and what is old, which probably not so surprising to you, I have already done, you will find that,
yeah, I looked at it too, and it's literally
very similar.
Right across it.
Very similar. There are four, by my count, the way I count objectives in the 007, there are 499 objectives in that certification. Of those, 171 of those objectives are new topics. That means if we look at it mathematically, about just over 34% of the objectives on that exam are new topics. Now, the good part of that, you'd think that's a third of the exam, but in reality, what they've really done is add new topics into existing chunks of data. So it's not that they're putting brand new things into the exam. They're simply saying, here's Ethernet. Now, instead of telling you just about 10 gig, 100 gig, and 1 gig, we're going to add an extra 10 gig piece into it. So it's not like they're jumping around and adding completely brand new ideas into the exam. They're simply adding on to the things that may have been naturally updated between the 006 and the 007 exam. The philosophy of the exam remains very, very close to the philosophy of the 006. And if you weren't paying much attention, you might not even realize those exam objectives were really much different. I have on my screen, and I know a lot of you, you may not even be in front of your computer, but for the people that are watching, and you can, of course, go back and look at this. What I did, no, that's the working one. Let me see the changes certification that I have and see if I can bring it up and let you see it. This is what I do for those of you that are wondering, what do you do? Whenever I look at an exam, this should give you some feel for this. So here's what I look at. These are the exam objectives for the 007. So as I went through this exam, everything that was the same from the previous version, I marked in green, and everything that was new is marked in yellow. So as you can see, just in section 1.3, you've got a lot of this is still the same as it was, but you can see certain topics are new. So they're sort of interlaced in there. Now there's some sections that are all new, and there's some sections where there's nothing new. So it's really a comparison. The purple, by the way, for those of you wondering, are topics that are covered in both, but it looks like they changed it enough in the new exam that I wanted to update those topics. That's why you'll see a little bit of purple there. But you can see a lot of the exam, like section 5.1 is exactly the same as the old exam. But section 5.2, kind of a 50-50 mix of things that are new versus things that are old. So that is one way, and I recommend you do that. If you've been studying for the 006, you're of course going to have to start over with the 007, but 30% is just enough that you really can't use your 006 materials anymore. You're going to have to use those 007 materials. So make sure that you've updated to the latest version, or that you're really, really meticulous like me, and you've really gone through the exam objectives and you really, really understand the extra things that you're going to need to know. They also got rid of a lot on the 007. You used to have to know like 15 different Ethernet standards. Now you have to know like 5. So enormous differences there. I think they simplified things in exactly the right way, but you're going to have to make sure you pay attention to those exam objectives. Hopefully that might help you, Sean.
Do you offer that those highlights anywhere? Can I get that PDF somewhere?
I don't, but that's a really good idea. I need to make that available.
I'm already getting your notes. The notes I'm ordered. They're awesome.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm getting for the second half of the A plus, and also for the Network Plus. Is that N plus CN or something?
Right. The NPCN. The
Great.
Network Plus course notes they're some of the best. They are the best Network Plus course notes I've ever created, because I really put everything into them. So I'm really happy with that latest version. That's an excellent resource for you. The videos, of course, are all updated for the N10007 and have been for many, many months. What I can do after we're done here, I'm missing a page of this for some reason that was not updated with the latest. I need to update those, and then I'll maybe tweet that out or stick it on the website so people can download what I think the changes are. What I probably have to do is put this in a text format so that I'm not violating any copyrights from CompTIA, and put it out into maybe a blog posting and let everybody see that. That may be the best way to do it.
Great. I'll be looking for it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling, Sean. Best of luck.
All right.
That's always a challenge when you're going from one version to another. It's good that you're not going from the older Security Plus to the newer Security Plus, where over 60% of the exam is different. It's a brand new exam. Folks on the line, 847 area code. Thanks for holding. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there. My name is Peter, and I'm calling from Hoffman Estates, Illinois.
Nice.
And
welcome,
I would,
Peter.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you very, very much for what you do for the IT community. And I studied your tapes, and I plan to do some subscribing to pay for your services. But to supplement my studies, I also took the question and answer course that CompTIA provides, and I still failed miserably. Well, not too miserably, about 63%. But my question is I'd like your assessment on the need for practical experience to pass this exam. I have no practical experience, and I've just studied from scratch.
Gotcha. Which specific exam are you working towards?
The 901.
Okay.
For A+.
Got it. And for those of you that have watched the study groups before, you know I really specify, or I try to emphasize, 4 different things to really have the best possible chance of passing this exam. The first one is to get a good book. The second one is to watch some videos. I can certainly help along those lines. The third one is to get plenty of Q&A. And the Q&A we did today is a very good example of that. The Q&A that's on the website, with the pop quiz on the website and the My Q&A books. And then the fourth one is plenty of hands-on. And it's going to be a balance between all of those. Before the 901 and especially the 902, hands-on becomes very, very useful. I like the idea of someone getting a computer, a desktop system, unplugging everything, opening it up, seeing what's inside, pulling out an expansion card, putting in an expansion card, looking at the CPU, looking at the fans and how they operate. Those types of hands-on can be very, very useful for working through these certifications. But some of this gets into operating systems. For example, the networking piece of this almost requires that you have a computer in front of you and you're able to ping, you're able to trace route, you're able to do some NS lookups. Those are expected of you to be able to do on that exam. So there's a typing and working at the operating system component of that hands-on as well. You don't have to set up a network with a bunch of switches and a bunch of routers. This isn't a Cisco certification, but having some familiarity at the command line or working at your computer for being able to perform these troubleshooting functions is a very common help desk or entry-level networking or computer technician task, and it's one that you should think about doing as you're studying for the 901 or the 902. Have you been able, Peter, to do any of those types of hands-on functions?
I chose to learn the terminology as to, what you were describing in your videos. Many times I did think, hey, open up a command line on your own computer and do this and see it for yourself. But as you have stated, there is just a tremendous amount of stuff you need to know and that you are exposed to. And in my case, I just feel that it might be best to just try and get a job first, and then explain to these employers that I'm studying to pass this, and the practical experience will be helpful. Do you feel that that's a possible solution?
It's not a bad approach to the A+ exam. In fact, the A+ exam objectives, if I pull these up real quick, I'm going to pull up the 901 and the 902 objectives, which you think would be right in front of me, but of course they're not. But I have them nearby. So the A+ exam objectives for the 901, they are written specifically, and they say this in the exam objectives, that the 901 examination measures necessary competencies for an entry-level IT professional with the equivalent knowledge of at least 12 months of hands-on experience in the lab or field. So they're really expecting you to already have a year of hands-on before you jump into the details of this exam. So maybe that's getting a job first, working through understanding a lot more of the hands-on, and then a year later looking at this exam is a pretty good strategy. That's exactly the strategy CompTIA recommends. Did I lose Peter? Is he still with me? Or did I lose Skype? Which is very possible. Everybody's here but me. Stay on the line, Peter, because I'm going to call back. Why am I the one who's not called in to what I'm doing here? Let's see if I can call into my own show. What happened there? Who knows what happened there, but we're going to call back in, and it's going to say
your 6-digit PIN number.
Peter's still on the line, thankfully. So let's put in that PIN number and see if we can talk back to Peter.
Welcome, host.
Well, thank you.
You are now in the host room and can manage your callers.
Well, so she says I am here. Maybe I am here. So hopefully I'm back, Peter. I apologize for that, but hopefully you were able to get most of the details of what it was asking about.
I am back. I missed some critical stuff there, but I feel that I really need to get a job. And in your opinion, not that I expect you to have a crystal ball here, but in your opinion, could somebody like me who has studied C# and database administration and is now looking at hardware and networking, could I walk into a entry-level job?
Oh, from the description you just gave, I would think so. Obviously, coming from the computer science side of things, the application development side of things is very different than the IT side of things or the operational side of things. But someone who already has that experience where you've already worked with the databases, you already have familiarity with operating systems and using them to create applications would give you that. And as I mentioned, you probably weren't able to catch that in the exam objectives for A+, they actually say this is designed for somebody with 12 months of hands-on experience in the lab or in the field. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. In fact, CompTIA even recommends that is a good path to follow to be able to know what you need to know to pass that exam.
Well, I thank you. I would agree with you. It just seemed that the questions on the exam were very situational versus the teachings of somebody like yourself, who, again, I thought was absolutely excellent, are more like cut and dry knowledge. And I really feel it kept me at a great disadvantage to pass.
So whenever, have you had the opportunity to sit down and take the actual 22901 exam yet?
Yes, I took it and I failed it.
Okay. So you've now, the benefit here is now you at least have a feel for the style of the CompTIA questions, which they're not unique as far as certification exams are considered. Once you sort of get the idea of here's how they ask questions on certification exams, you'll find they apply not only to CompTIA, but to Cisco and Microsoft and others as well. But they do have a particular cadence, a particular style, a particular flavor about them. And they're asking questions a lot like we did today. You probably on your certification exam, and I'm not asking for details, but you'll notice they didn't ask you for definitions. They didn't say, what does DDR mean? They aren't interested
Correct.
in knowing that. They want you to know the next two steps beyond that of taking advantage of using that memory and solving a problem in a particular situation. And that's why in the questions I give today and the questions that I try to focus on, I'm trying to give you those secondary and third steps as well to take you down that path. And you'll find that not just CompTIA exams are like that, but a lot of others as well. And I think once you get used to that, you'll be able to pick out the right answers. They'll start jumping out at you a little bit easier. And when you start seeing that, okay, I'm getting those particular topics now. I can really work through them.
Sounds like I'm going to just keep going and trying with this. And again, I'd like to thank you for your tapes and what you do. And I'm going to be buying your notes and subscribing, and I'm very grateful to you.
I appreciate it, Peter. Thanks for the support. Best of luck.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's one wherever you're trying to figure out, am I ready for the exam? Maybe that's where you go back to the exam objectives and you start using those as your checklist, because they tell you exactly in the exam objectives, here's what you need to know. Given a scenario, configure settings and BIOS UEFI tools on a PC. I need to know how to do firmware upgrades and flash the BIOS. I need to understand BIOS component information such as RAM, hard drive, optical drive, CPU. They tell you what you need to know. So that may be the way to go about doing that and working through those details. I think that might be a great way to make that happen. Back to the phone lines. Thanks for holding. 805 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
All right, my name's Keith Leonard. I'm calling from Garden Grove, California.
Oh, welcome, Keith. What can we do for you?
Thank you. So I just passed my 901 exam last month, and I'm taking the 902 next week.
Nice.
I was kind of wondering, I'm going for or at least was planning to go for the Network Plus and then the Security Plus. But I recently heard maybe taking some a little bit more vendor specific as a Cisco or Microsoft certification. And I wanted to know your thoughts or advantages, disadvantages of those.
One of the things you'll find on the industry in general is it's very regionalized in what people are expecting. what you're going to be asked to provide, or what people will be looking for, what hiring managers will be looking for in California, are very different than what hiring managers might be looking for in Florida, and very different for New York and Chicago. So, and very different outside the United States. So you never know exactly what people really, really want from you. Fortunately, in our industry, there's not a ton of different options. There's the A+, the CompTIA type of exams that tend to be entry level and maybe the next step up from entry level. There are very specific operating system and technology exams from Microsoft. There are networking and detailed networking certifications from Cisco. There's VMware certifications, but there's not a ton to choose from. So a lot of the hiring managers are probably going to have in their mind a particular set of skills that they're looking for. And one of the things I recommend to people is they ask me all the time, what certification do I need? And my answer is, I have no idea. What are people asking for in your area? So this is your opportunity to do probably one or two different things to figure this out. Some of these work better than others. I would recommend, of course, start looking at your local job postings, see if they actually mention any certifications in these job postings. Some hiring managers have the philosophy of, let's not hire somebody with a certification because they will be less expensive to the company and we will train them as they go. And we know when they get to a certain point that we'll have to move them up, or they'll be moving out to another organization. Some people say, we don't have time for that. We need to get people in right now. We need those certifications and we're willing to pay for it. So we're looking for certain certifications. And they might list A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, or they might list some Microsoft certifications. You never know exactly what they might choose from. The thing that I find is actually more effective and most effective is to go ask people yourself. And some of the best places to do that are places like Microsoft user groups, because in every geography, there is some type of Microsoft user group in that area. Or there may be a Cisco user group. There may be a security user group, the ISSA, for example. Those are user groups where people that attend those are people that are either the hiring managers or they know the hiring manager, and they certainly know what the current situation is for the help desk and entry-level positions at their companies. So you can go to those, and there's usually a chance after somebody's done speaking and showing certain technologies, there's usually pizza. You can usually stand around, talk with people, and ask them, hi, what's your name? Where do you work? I've seen you post some job postings there. It sounds like you need Microsoft people. What type of projects are you working on right now? If you were in my position where you were just out of school or you're just out of this certification, what would you recommend that I do to be able to qualify for a job in your company? And people are more than happy to tell you these things. You just have to ask them. Another great thing about that is you're now meeting people. You can be added to their LinkedIn. You can go into an interview with that company and you can say, oh, yes, I know Bob in server administration. We go to the same Microsoft user group. Those types of connections are so important. I tell people in previous study groups that throughout my IT career, I probably had 15 different jobs across 6 or 7 or 8 different companies, just because that's the way IT tends to go. And one of the things that I found as I was going is my first job, I didn't know anybody there. But every job after that, I knew somebody who already worked there. And that was incredibly important, as it turns out, because you want to be able to hire people you can trust. And if you already know somebody who works there that can vouch for you and say, oh, yeah, I met him, he's a good guy. Well, that's great. That may be all it takes to put you to the top of that list. So sometimes it's not necessarily about troubleshooting and staying in a dark room and going through the internet to find job postings. It might be putting on a shirt with a collar and some jeans and going to eat pizza and learn some interesting technology and meet some interesting people. Those are different philosophies, but you may find one of those works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Whole different type of networking.
It is. That is one of the most important types of networking, as it turns out.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thanks, Keith. That is one where don't discount the user group. They can be incredibly useful. In my career, I was speaking at many user group meetings, meeting a lot of different people. It is such an open environment. People want to be at these user groups. They want to meet other people. And by the way, and this is probably across the board at every one of these big companies or even mid-sized companies, if someone brings your resume in and you get hired, they get a finder's fee. So they are actually financially incentivized to get you hired at these companies because it's money in their pocket. So that always helps too. People all the time do collection. Oh, let me add you to my LinkedIn. I will absolutely add you to my LinkedIn. They're resume collecting. I know you now. You might be a good fit. I'm going to keep you in mind for some of these things. Make sure you keep an eye on that. The 914 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jackie, and I'm actually calling from Arizona, not
Welcome.
New York like my area code signifies.
See, that you mixed it all up. Completely different part of the country. What can we do for you, Jackie?
My question was, I know typically it's recommended to do the A+, and then the Network Plus, and then the Security Plus. But currently my degree I'm going into is for information security, and it clicks a lot easier for me. Would it be so out of line to do one of the different exams first?
It wouldn't. In fact, in my CompTIA career, where I took my first CompTIA exam, my second CompTIA exam, my third CompTIA exam, I took Security Plus first, then I took Network Plus, then I took A+. I did it exactly backwards as to what most people think you should be doing, because I was working for Network Associates, which for many of you, the name isn't around anymore, but it was a combination of McAfee and Network Associates, which was Network General at the time. So Network General and McAfee got married and became Network Associates. So there was tons of security I was working on. I was doing antivirus. I was doing firewalls. I was working on intrusion prevention. There was enterprise antivirus and anti-malware. There was the packet capturing and the security side of things. So why would I take an A+ and Network Plus? Security Plus fit perfectly into what I was doing. So that's what I started with. So it's a very similar situation to you. And quite honestly, a lot of the people that come to my site, Security Plus is their first certification. One of the things that you may have seen is that the Department of Defense considers Security Plus to be one of those very first entry-level certifications that you must have to be able to be hired by the Department of Defense or one of the Department of Defense contractors. So they don't take Network Plus and they don't take A+. So I find a lot of people coming to my site are there just to get Security Plus. It's their very first IT certification, and it fits into the things that they're doing as well. So yeah, perfectly normal, Jackie.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better as well. Would you see anybody who starts with Security Plus continuing into more of an IT environment instead of just going through further into security?
Well, security being a really integral part of IT. It is a major component of IT. A lot of people kind of put it into a different category. Sometimes I see security, what is IT security, which the industry is sort of calling cyber security these days. A lot of people tend to mix together the programming side of things along with the IT security side of things. But in reality, those things are very, very different. Security in general, technology security, is a very broad scope that could cover someone who is disassembling malware executables and trying to understand how malware works. That is not IT security. IT security focuses on the operational side, setting policies, configuring firewalls, setting IPS and IDS configurations, setting up reporting, determining how they should be setting up VPNs, configuring multi-factor authentication. All of those things and keeping things protected is the IT security side of things, which fits perfectly into the Security Plus certification. You'll notice Security Plus, they don't go into programming. They don't go into executable disassembling because that's a completely different world with completely different requirements. And really, at this point in our industry, those two particular areas really do not meet.
All right, good to know. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the videos and stuff, and I'll be looking at getting notes myself here soon, too.
Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate the support. Good luck.
Thank you.
That's one where if you start breaking out the things you need to know, you'll find Security Plus stays very, very close to what you need to know as an IT security professional. I'm someone who, in my last job, now I work for myself. This is what I do. But in my last job, I was working for a next generation firewall company. I was a senior systems engineer. I went from company to company. I visited hundreds of companies over the about 7 years that I was doing that as a senior SE, where I was implementing technologies in an environment to do studies and evaluations, and doing the actual implementation into a production environment in a sort of a post-sales mode. So I got to see a lot of different companies, a lot of different security professionals, to see what they did day to day and to work directly with what they were doing, not only on the firewall side, but these other sides as well. So make sure that you're able to parse those things out. The industry is very, very broad. And where I worked, there were security professionals that their job was to break apart these malware executables and understand at the machine language level what they were doing. I didn't do any of that. I was focused on making these firewalls work. I was working with people that were setting policies and implementing VPNs and configuring multi-factor authentication and setting up syslog destinations and SIMs and being able to report on that data over time. So it's very, very broad. Make sure you know exactly what you're trying to focus on and where you can go with that. Let's focus on now the 610 area code you've been holding for so long. Thank you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Bernie. I'm calling from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Fantastic.
And
Welcome.
I would like to make more work for you.
Oh, well, I certainly think that's a great idea, Bernie. You should pile on.
Okay. Seeing as the 9 or the A+ exam is two separate exams.
Yes.
And you recommend taking them separately. Would you consider making separate classes, separate videos for 901 and 902?
Separate study group videos, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are so spot on the money. And I think it's an appropriate time to think about doing that as well. And I've mentioned in previous study groups that we almost need to break these things out. And in fact, with the next edition of the CompTIA certification, which is the 1001 and the 1002 that we expect will probably appear in the January timeframe, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to break out these study groups so that we can focus on 1001 topics and we can focus on 1002 topics. And you're going to see a lot more differentiation of those. I'll have a separate page for the videos. I'll have a separate page for the course notes. I'll separate out everything. They're pretty much separated now, but I really do want to make those delineated so that people can really focus on what they need to know. As it turns out, you and I are on exactly the same page, Bernie, because I think it's time that happens. And I think people want to be able to focus their efforts a little more during their studies as well.
I appreciate that, and like I said, I know it's a lot of work putting this together and the research and everything. So doing another one cuts into your time, but it would help. Like I did the fundamentals and got through that without a problem. Now it's on to 901, and I'm just trying to stick to that information.
Right now, only half of the study group really applies to your 901 studies. The other half is 902 that you're not at yet. You don't even need to worry about those things, and yet they're sort of blended together. You'll notice on the study groups, like I alternate between a 901 question and a 902 question. So that's one where I think you're right. Separate those out, and now you can focus on one. Plus, there's more content now for one exam and the other exam, and it does take about half a day or so to put together all of this content. And it's going to take, I haven't figured out exactly when during the week I'm going to do this, because I do this on Wednesdays, but I would like to be able to still have that extra week free during the month. So I don't know if I'm going to combine these together into the same week or not. We'll figure that out. But the important part is we may be able to separate these out. And for the 1001 and 1002, I'm definitely shooting to have two separate study groups to make that happen.
I think that would really help. I appreciate that. Maybe, a little less Xbox time.
Maybe a little bit less Xbox time. Let's not go crazy.
All work and no play.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bernie. Best of luck. Bernie's right, spot on. He knows. We really need to focus this out, and he's right. Combining these two things together has been great up to this point. I think it's worked well, but I do need to put a little extra work in. because it does take it takes half a day. Usually at the end of this, I spend the rest of the day. My voice is usually gone after this, so I will usually build the podcast audio when this is done, and then I'll post that. Then I have to write pop quiz questions for A+ and the Network Plus question of the week. That gets posted. I have to build those. That takes about half a day to build. Tuesday to Tuesday is how I write those out. And then Network Plus is Tuesday. So I write 6 questions there. That takes about half a day. I usually don't do that on a Wednesday. Usually that's Thursday. If it's a very good Thursday, then I'll spend the last half of Thursday building out the study group for the next week. So I think we've got a good cycle there going. Usually what tends to happen is like Thursday, tomorrow, I have there's something always going on. The air conditioner guy has to come, or I've got Best Buy coming to fix a television, or I've got to take the dog to get groomed. There's always those life things that happen when you're working through those. So usually it's Friday or Saturday until I finish that process out. And then I'm creating other content. So of course I mentioned the A+ exam is getting updated. Those are all new videos. So all that content is being created on the off hours of that. So adding another study group adds to that list of things. We just have to figure out the timing and make that happen. So I'll have to figure out those details and figure out the specifics of that. For those of you worrying about the 901 and the 902, those are going to be around until the summer of 2019. If you pass your 901, 902 exam, your certification's good for 3 years. It doesn't matter what they do with the tests. You're good for 3 years. Don't worry. In fact, you get exactly the same certification as if you took the 1001 and the 1002. So it doesn't matter. It's still good for 3 years. So that part you don't have to worry about. Back to the phones, 949 area code. Hi, caller, you there? What's your name? We're calling from? I hear myself, so you've got to be there, caller. Hello, caller. What's your name? We're calling from?
This is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
I'm calling from California.
Welcome. What can we do for you?
Sorry, it's just weird. I had you on my speakers, and now I have you on my phone.
Yep. It's weird for everyone, Ryan, including myself. What can I do for you?
So my question is, I've been studying for the A+ 901 for about a year now. I took it last year, and I actually failed it. I didn't have enough experience doing it. But now I got a year of experience under my belt. I bought your quizzes. I've been doing those as much as I can.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it's a good idea to take the test, the 901, and then get some study time for the 902 and then do that before it renews, or wait until it renews next year and then take the 10. The updated version. Yeah,
it sounds like you're the kind of studier that I am. Like I can't get through. Some of the people that come to my site can sit down with this material, churn through it in 2 weeks, and go out and take the exam. I would say the average for people come to my site for those exams is that it takes them about 3 months for the 901. They take that exam, and then about 3 months for the 902, and they take that exam. But I take a long time to study. I might take a year.
I do too.
To study for exam. So I understand completely what you're talking about. And if we're looking at the calendar, we know that the 901 and 902 exam will be probably retired in less than a year. So it will be summer of 2019, which for normal people is plenty of time to get both of those exams studied for and taken. For people like you and me, that's not even going to work. That does not work for us at all. So now we've got a challenge is, do we really push ourselves and try to get the 901 and the 902 done before, I don't know, let's say July, before the middle or end of July? Or is this perhaps one of those rare occasions where I might tell somebody, you know what, maybe you should wait for the next version because you're going to take so long to study for those 2 exams that you're going to be out of time. And that's the problem is if you take the 901 right now and you pass it, you must pass the 902 before it's retired, or you have to start all over again. It doesn't count anything for you. So that's not good for anybody. Yeah. So this may be one of those times where you might delay until we think it's going to be available in January. So if it's released in January, that's not that long away. And quite honestly, as someone who I've already built out both the 1001 and the 1002 exam presentations. They're done. I just have to record them.
Okay.
So I've already gone through all of the exam objectives. I know exactly what's new. I know exactly what's old. And it turns out the two series, not a lot of changes. Not a huge difference between the 901 and the 1001. Not a lot of differences between the 902 and the 1002. It's an incremental update. In fact, I find a number of the things that nagged me a lot about the 901 are not in the 1001. For example, the list of processor socket numbers of all of the Intel sockets and all of that stuff, not even in the 1001. Doesn't exist anymore in the 1001 in the A+ exam.
Okay.
So in many ways,
That's good.
In many ways, your sanity may be served by waiting until December, January timeframe to start studying for this. The challenge you're going to have, of course, is that a lot of the study materials for these are not going to be available on day one. It takes a lot of time to write these books. It takes a lot of time to make these videos. CompTIA did give a lot of time in the front end of this. They gave a lot more time for a lot of people to be able to create this. So maybe we'll see more books out on day one. But I've really got to work right now to get my course notes done, to get the videos shot, to get them edited and get them posted by the time this thing goes live. So we're all going to be running until this thing is day one. So it may be a little bit of a challenge to get newer content, but if you put the objectives side by side, you'll be able to see what the things are that are new and maybe use other study resources for that. That may be the time that...
Are the objectives for the 10 out?
They are not quote unquote out. They are not officially released by CompTIA. In fact, CompTIA, as I understand, last I checked, which about a week ago, had not officially announced the exam yet. But if you go to Google and you search for the 220-1001 and the 220-1002 and maybe put a file type :PDF, you will find them. So that's my extra special Google hacking tip of the day, to find other people that already have the exam objectives that have somehow made them available to others. And I think actually there might be links to them in the CompTIA subreddit. So go to reddit.com/r/CompTIA. There may be links. There's most likely links in there that you can find.
All right, I will check that out. Thank you. Yeah, I think, it's just, I'm never sure. I'm just a little worried. I think I'm ready to take the 901 because I've just had so much study time under my belt. And I think the real question is, will I have enough time to do the 902?
I think that is a pretty important challenge. I would find the 902, coming from my background, was very hardware related. I found the second version, the software version of whatever they're doing here. They're now calling it Core 1 and Core 2 in the new version. But the one with the operating systems, some people find it easier. Some people find it harder. So you may find the 902 is much more difficult to study for. I would recommend going to those exam objectives now, looking through them, getting a feel for them, and see if that's something you're going to have to make a decision time-wise on, if that's something you think you'll be able to push through before this thing's retired.
Thank you so much for your advice.
Best of luck, Ryan.
Love your videos.
Thank
Bye.
you, sir. Take care. I appreciate that. We put a lot of work into our videos. We put a lot of work into our course notes. We want them to be the very best study materials that you can get your hands on. I don't try to take anything out of them. I want to put as much in. So I appreciate that. That really does mean a lot for everything that we do here. Let's go. I do have another call. I was going to ask a question. No, I think we're good. I think folks in the chat room answer their own questions. That makes it easy. Whole thing happened. I didn't even have to do anything along those lines. So we can go to 682. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there. My name's Paul. I'm calling from Dallas, Texas, and I just visited the CompTIA subreddit after hearing you mention that.
Yes.
And my girlfriend said, "Wow, he's talking your language." One of the sticky posts is a sneak peek at the 1001 and the 1002,
See, there
and
it
it
is.
says that the 90X series will retire July 15th, 2019. Does that mean that if I get my 901 this fall, I have until July 15th to take the 902?
Correct. And if you don't pass the 902 before, or whatever the second exam you're going to take, if you don't pass that second exam by what we think is going to be July the 15th, then you have to start over with the 1001 and the 1002.
Okay, got it.
That's the timing thing. Now, that's a long way away. As I mentioned, for most of us, we're good with that. 3 months at a time, we'll take it, we'll finish it, we're good to go. Others of us, we're kind of at that point. And since the new version we think will be released on January 15th, we're still not completely sure, but that's the date you'll see on the subreddit as well. That's pretty, relatively speaking, that's pretty soon. We got to get through October, then we got Thanksgiving, we got Christmas, and it's January already. So that's going to go pretty quick. Some of us may be better off waiting until that point. I usually don't say that. I usually say, get this certification now, put it in your pocket, and now you can go get a job with it. But it's a whole timing issue, and I would hate for somebody to start the process, get that first test out of the way, and then they get trapped and have to restart from the very beginning. That would just be terrible.
Sure. So if you have not taken either of the 90X series, then you have to take the Core 1 and Core 2 starting roughly January 15th?
There's an overlap from what we think will be January 15th to July 15th. You could choose to take either series. So you might want to take the 901, 902, and you could take that 901, 902 up until they retire in July. But as soon as that hits in January 15th, some people may think, I'm never going to be able to take both of these by July. Let's start now with the 1001, 1002. So there's this weird overlap period where you have to make a decision on which way you want to go.
Sure. If I'm confident that I will be able to knock out both of the 90X series, is there any reason to focus on the Core 1 and Core 2?
Functionally, no. You get exactly the same certification whether you pass the 901, 902 or whether you pass the 1001, 1002. It looks exactly the same. It feels exactly the same. There's the same text on the certification. The certification you get isn't numbered. You don't get a 901, 902 certification. You get an A+ certification.
Right.
So it doesn't matter from that perspective. There are some very, very rare occasions where people have told me, my boss knew that the newer version was out and they wanted me to take the newer one. So if that's a particular situation you have at work, you may want to confirm that before you make that decision. That's a pretty rare scenario. Most hiring managers or most managers just want you to be A+ certified, because once you take the tests, you're simply going to be renewing these every 3 years anyway. You're never taking the tests again. Right. So the people that took the 801, 802 and the 901, 902 are never going to take the 1001, 1002. So why would you have to do that? So that it just depends on the situation you're in. But most people who already have the certification aren't taking the certification tests again, thankfully.
Great. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling, Paul.
Yeah, I appreciate all that you've done for all of us.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you saying that. Best of luck with those exams.
Thank you very much. Bye.
There's the decision process we have to make. That's the one. And this is going to be a question that I get from today, which is really a good time to do it, the October time frame, if we're going to see January release. And we'll get these questions all the way up until July the 15th. There will be people taking their exams, either both or their last certification exam, on July the 14th, whatever that day before it retires. There will be people taking it all the way up until that day. So if some of you are wondering, do I really take the 901, 902? Yeah, people are going to be taking it up until the day it goes away. I don't recommend that. That's probably not your best, the best thing you should do, because not everybody passes it. And then you're stuck. Then there's no opportunity to do a retake. It goes away. It's finished. Nobody needs that level of pressure. So, and don't do that to yourself. If you're in the January time frame, just take the 10.01, 10.02. As I mentioned, there's not a ton of differences between them. There are differences. They, of course, updated hardware. There's updated. The Windows 10 is in there instead of Windows Vista. Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. That's what you need to know. But you don't see older technologies. There's a lot of newer technologies in it, but it's not such a dramatic change that you're thinking that you're taking a different certification exam. It's very familiar to the old one, thankfully, because I had to update all of my course videos. I had to update all of my course notes. And thankfully, there weren't a lot of dramatic changes on the A+. So that's good. And that's about right. Over 3 years, we don't have amazing changes in technology. Not suddenly we're not flying spaceships around 3 years later. So fortunately, we don't have that same scenario when we're dealing with technologies. It's an incremental change. And maybe what I'll do is also put up, I need to make these blog entries, obviously, to show the changes between here's what's new on the newest A+, the newest Network Plus, the newest Security Plus, so that people can make their own decisions without having to manually do all of that. I've already done the work. Let me see if I have my A+. I'll give you an idea. I have the 10.01 exam objectives. I'll show you what I mean because I am going through them right now. It is extensive of what's there, what's changed, what's different. It's a lot. So if we go, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. So if we look at the 10.01, 10.01 starts with mobile devices, by the way. So green is what was in the old one. Yellow are things that were added. So gosh, that's, there's some sections, 2.3 notice is almost all new. But a lot of these are almost old. But see, they've got new things kind of peppered in there. There's a little flavor of new things added in. So this is good. If you've already been studying for the 901, you will be able to transition into the 10.01 just fine. You will not have to worry about this. So I'll make this information available so you can get your hands on it because I think it's valuable. I think if you're trying to make that decision, especially right now, this will be useful. So people in the chat room are asking, so am I going to have Core 1 and Core 2 videos ready when these tests come out? And that's my goal. Certainly they'll be, if they're not completed by then, they will be very, very close to being completed by then. And I'll just have them, I'll start putting them out probably before the test is actually released because some of you are going to want to make those decisions on what you need to do with this. I have the hardest part of doing this, by the way, just for some inside baseball. What I do is I sit down. The first thing I do is I create this. I build out what is new, what is old, what is probably needs to be updated. Purple means I have a little bit of this, but I need to add a little more of this. So I go back and I build out all new videos for each course series, which does a couple of things. Allows me to update to the latest, give you a little different perspective. I can add feedback that people have given me. But it also means I can build the entire course out before I start shooting videos. So every slide, every demo is already laid out and ready to go. And before I ever start shooting video, it's all finished. And right now, the 10.01 and the 10.02 is finished. All of the courseware that I work with is done. So that's great for me. That's the hardest part. That's the most time-consuming part. That literally takes months to be able to do. So all those are finished. So the next step for me is to build out the course notes because those come directly from the slides. So I did it backwards. The 10.02 course notes are already done. The 10.01 course notes are almost done. So that's easy. And once those are finished and ready to go, then I start shooting video. And quite honestly, the actual shooting of the video, kind of easy. That's the easiest part because all of the content's already written. I don't read from a page. There's no script that I have to write. I just step through each one of those topics. I do demonstrations on the screen. I show you the pictures and break apart things. And maybe I show you how to upgrade a BIOS. There'll be a lot more video in this one than there was in others, but that's very easy to do. Relatively speaking, the hard part's actually creating it and getting it set up like anything else. So all of the hard part has been done. I'm going to start shooting video probably in the next week or two. So already in October, I should be able to build out most of the content we need well before the January, what we think will be a January release. So I am hoping to have all that ready to go. If not, certainly we'll be well on our way to have that content ready to go. So all of these will already be updated to YouTube. In fact, they'll be uploaded to YouTube. You won't even be able to see them because I won't release them until, I don't know when I'm releasing them. Do I wait, and maybe you'll tell me, do I wait until the day the 1001 exam is available to take, or do I release them prior to that? And if I do, how much prior? Do I start releasing 1001 videos now, or do I wait a month before, or do I wait the day of? I don't know. You tell me. I have my own perspective of what I think I should do, but you can tell me otherwise. Tell me if I'm right or wrong or indifferent. You don't know what I'm thinking, but I'm not going to tell you that. You're going to have to figure that part out on your own to tell me if I know what I'm thinking. But I would love to get that feedback. You can always go to the top or the bottom of my website, click the Contact Us link. You can send me DMs on Twitter. I don't lock the DMs. You don't have to follow me, but if you did, that's great. You can send me a DM there. You can send me a note on Reddit. I'm on Reddit every day, multiple times. I always check in, always leave information in there if anybody has a question. But the Contact Us link on my website goes directly to my phone, so I can always get in touch with you and figure that out. The official release date of the 1001, 1002 has not been set yet. We think it's going to be January 15th, but they have not officially said that yet. But I think it's probably a pretty good date. Go with that. Let's just assume it's going to be January 15th and you'll be good. And we can always work out the details from there and figure out the next place to go. Well, we've gone through another hour of Q&A. I don't know why you're still here, but there you are. I appreciate it, though. Thank you for joining us for the first hour of the interactive Q&A. Thank you for this second hour, too. We would not be able to have such an extensive and knowledgeable show without these fantastic questions that you provide to us. It is really something that not just helps what you're doing, but I think it helps everybody who's able to listen in as well. Thank you so much for that. Stick around for, don't stick around, but come back. In a week, we've got our Network Plus study group. Don't stick around. I'm closing this out. We're done, people. This is the end of the after show. I want to thank you for being here. Come back next week for our Network Plus study group, or come back next month for the next A Plus study group. In the meantime, feel free to contact me on my website, on Twitter, on Reddit, on any way you'd like. I love to get your messages. I'd love to respond to them. Thank you for being there. And hopefully you'll be able to have everything you need to pass that A Plus exam. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the A Plus study group.